Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I actually came here as a guest, kind of incognito, probably 4 or 5 months ago, and I loved the idea. I loved the atmosphere. I loved how people were working together. I do host a show. It airs Monday through Friday, and a lot of that show is based on how do we get America back? Not from a political standpoint, a right or a left, but just like a fundamental freedom standpoint. And one of the largest aspects to freedom is free enterprise. Free enterprise is the fuel for freedom. So I'm here to encourage you, and we're going to cover some of the biggest mistakes small businesses make. Terry did reference that I'm one of the top 100 business trainers in the world. I'm the only person on that list who happens to host a show. One of the things I get is, you look a lot younger than I thought you were going to be, and you're a lot shorter than I thought you were going to be. But it is true. And because we have that opportunity, it gives me an opportunity to talk to not only a lot of business owners in a training capacity, but a lot of business owners just in a you know, you're walking through a store and they'll tell you their business story sort of capacity. And we noticed that a lot of small businesses are making a lot of mistakes. Yahoo Money put out a study that said 53% of small businesses cannot sustain themselves. They have to have a job outside of what they do in order to survive. Another 30% don't have the financial wherewithal to last another 10 years. And what that means is, statistically, over 8 out of 10 of you are failing. Now, the thing that we found with business owners is you eat and sleep your business. Whether it's a business or an invention, it's all you think about. I started my first business at 18, second one at 19, third one at 21, and it was about at that time when other people started asking me, hey, how do I start a business? And I remember I was sitting in front of a couple, they were in their mid-30s, they had a couple kids, and we went through a plan on how to start a business, and they started crying. And I said, well, why are you crying? And they said, well, because we've been praying for months for something, for an answer, for something to click. And when I look around a room like this, I love this room because you all think like I do. But so many of you are just waiting for something to click. When you look at one of the top reasons why businesses fail, it's usually their entry into a business, into an industry. A lot of people will be an employee for a long time, and then they'll say, hey, I want to make a run at it, I want to start a business. And they usually enter an industry at the easiest point. Makes sense. However, that's where everybody else enters the industry too. So right off the bat, you're already putting yourself in the worst place for competition. It's also typically the worst place to make money. Let me give you an example. If you were in a town of, say, 5,000 people, and you decided to open a flower shop, you would have to sell everybody in town a flower every week in order to be financially solvent. Yet what do we see in small towns? I'm going to open up a flower shop. Then 4 years later, they're shutting down, and you're wondering, why did you do this? Well, because I knew flowers and I love flowers. Well, great. That's awesome. But start a different jumping off point in an industry. Maybe become a flower wholesaler to hotels in a 10-county region or something. You have to pick that different entry point. We have a lot of small business owners who think, okay, well, I have a business, I have an invention, and I need to get it out there. So we start thinking, okay, how do I market? Where's the first place we go nowadays? The internet. Internet's the first place we go. Google has almost 1 billion people, or Facebook has almost 1 billion people on Facebook. Do you know that over 80% of Facebook users are now deleting their companies that they liked or that they're friends with? Almost 90% of Twitter users are unfollowing businesses. Even if you happen to have a huge footprint on social marketing. Coca-Cola, 55 million Facebook fans. Yet in a recent survey, their reach was only, at best, 6%. Well, then that's not really marketing, is it? And at best, think about this for a second. Think about this. Social marketing to people who you already know, that's not marketing. That's at best customer retention. But yet the experts are going to tell you, oh, you got to go there. You got to. Why? These people already know about you. That's not marketing. And then when you tell me that Coke only gets a 6% reach, how good do you think you're going to do? I think they have more money than you. So we have to realize, wait a second, this isn't marketing. And that kind of transfers into search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is, paying somebody to get you placed on a search engine like Google or Yahoo or Bing. And when somebody searches for you, you pop up. Now, isn't that kind of the opposite of marketing? They don't know about you, so they have to go search. That's not marketing. That's the antithesis of marketing. But yet that's what all the experts on the shelf are going to tell you to do. Go out there and spend a lot of money on search engine optimization. Best case scenario, you're delivering your potential customer not only to you, but to about 4,000 of your possible competitors. That makes sense. Marketing would have prevented them from having to search in the first place. Make sense? So this is a huge error, multi-billion dollar error. Matter of fact, Dell Computer, who is in the industry, they said that they wasted $150 million chasing this social and search engine route. And they're in this industry. Yet we have so many of you and me, and the small business owners, who are thinking, okay, well, I have to market. And that's what the experts are telling me to do. So let's delve down marketing a little bit further. Can you name 10 ads you saw on television yesterday? No. I've done this for 15 years. Nobody has said yes. Can you name 10 billboards you saw on the way here today? No. Can you name 10 ads you saw in the newspaper yesterday? No. Better question. Did you read the newspaper yesterday?
No. Yeah.
When's the last time you used a phone book? 10 years ago, yeah. I used one a few months ago as a doorstop, but that's about it. But even the phone book is really only an archaic version of search engine optimization. They don't know about you, so we're going to send them to the phone book, and they're going to peruse a bunch of your competition, and hopefully they land on you. Well, when 53% of small businesses aren't making it, you can't rely on them hopefully landing on you. Does that make sense? This is why people call the show, right into the show, and say, Josh, I'm crying. I'm driving home and I'm thinking, man, is this what my life is? Am I never going to make it? How do I explain to my wife that, yeah, we're going to invest some more money in my invention, even though it hasn't panned out in 10 years? I told you this might hurt a little bit. But it's true. Now, in a related effort to that, even if we were to look down these avenues of marketing, television, billboards, your mind is actually set up to ignore it. Matter of fact, if this is your brain on drugs, no, I'm just kidding. This is your brain. This is your subconscious. Makes up the majority of your mental activity. This is your conscience. Makes up the smallest part. This right here is called a critical factor. Now this is deep, and usually to do this, not to toot my own horn, but this is usually an $8,000 seminar. This prevents your marketing from happening. The human mind is inundated today with over 15,000 branded images in a 24-hour period. Your mind said, wait a second, that's too much. So it created a barrier. And that's why in 15 years, talking to rooms of thousands of people, not one has been able to say, can you name 10 ads you saw on television yesterday? You're actually programmed not to. Yet, somebody's going to come in, sorry, television audience, somebody's going to come in and say, hey, you need to buy television advertising for your small business. It isn't going to work by design. The only place that really has a benefit in regards to television advertising, if you have a small budget. Now, if you have $1 billion like Coke, little different because you have so many opportunities for exposure. But in general, the only place that usually works in television advertising is sports. Anybody know why? Because you don't turn the channel. Really? Now, all of this that I've said so far is absolutely true. Let's add to it. Okay? I have a DVR. Anybody know what that is? Mm-hmm. It allows me to skip an ad. Your customer base is willing to spend money to avoid you. You might want to figure out what marketing is. Honestly. I have a pop-up blocker on my computer. Do you? Yet somebody's going to tell you, get those internet ads. Go invest that money. When I'm willing to avoid you, you have a problem. Make sense?
And if you do get you, they hate you.
Yes, that's the other thing. That kind of links it back to why most people are getting rid of the businesses that they follow on Facebook. Because it's, what is it? It's social marketing. They don't want to see your ad. They don't want to see it. So now when I see it, you actually made me mad. That's a great strategy. The other opportunities that are out there are things like door hangers and window hangers. How do you feel when you come out of a movie or out of the grocery store and you have a thing underneath your windshield?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Right?
Oh, yeah.
But we're all thinking, well, maybe that's the thing I should do. Really? Make your customer mad. That's awesome. Tell me how that works. The average Facebook user has over 600 friends. That means even if you were lucky and got that 6% exposure, even if you're lucky, odds are I'm not going to see it anyway. One, it's customer attention, not marketing. Two, you only have a 6% chance of making it to my eyeballs anyway, making it to my computer, because Facebook doesn't post it on everybody. They have an algorithm that only posts it on max 6% of the people who follow you. In addition to that, if you posted your ad or your blurb or the thing that you're counting on for rent at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I go on the computer at 4, I'm never going to see it. I'd have to scroll down for 3 hours just to get to it. Now, who in here is in sales? The answer is all of you, by the way. Okay, I found a problem. The answer is all of you. Whether you're a dentist or a lawyer or a husband or a father, you're in sales. Sales is really conveying an idea so the other person gets it and understands it. So all of you are in sales. Congratulations. Now the problem is, as Terry was referencing, even if you're an inventor and you're looking for that business partner, you still have to sell them on why it's a good idea to partner with you. So we have to look at sales a little bit. This plays into that. Most modern sales technology is based on a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Written by Dale Carnegie. I bet 90% of you have a copy of that someplace. Yeah. That book is 80 plus years old. The world has changed. In Dale Carnegie's day, 1920-ish, most people had one career for their entire life, and half of the equation always stayed at home. Now, the average career lasts less than 5 years. Both people are working, and at some point in your professional career, you were a salesperson of some sort. Now, what does that do? If I were to come to you and say, sir, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way. Let me tell you what I found. Some of you are laughing already. You know it is feel, felt, found. If I were to come to you and say, well, if I can make that price work today, what's stopping you from driving it off the lot? Oh, we got more laughs, right? See, this is a problem. The customer base that you're trying to sell to already knows what's coming. And if you're not going to buy because of that, why are you teaching your staff or yourself trying to run your business the very same thing that prevents you from buying? 95% of the sales experts in the world are based off of old technology. That's why they have to come along every year or two with a new program, a new technique. Come to my bigger and better seminar. Because all they're really doing is taking old technology, rewrapping it so it works again. Problem is, it's not working again. Problem is, 53% of you can't sustain your business without a job outside of it. So it's time we do something outside of that box, right? So when you look at a purchasing decision, oh, by the way, go to joshtoley.com. Your brain operates on positives and negatives. And there's about maybe 4 people on the planet who teach this, so take notes if you can take notes. Everything you do is avoidance of pain or pursuit of pleasure. Everything. Now, that tells us a lot when it comes to how do we sell something. What constitutes as sales right now is a lot of, when they come into the store, grab their hand and say, hey, how you doing? And of course that turns you off. Why? Because you have a subconscious negative indicator of that. You hate that. So even if they do it with a smile, you hate it. It makes you feel bad. Anybody in here a smoker? Or used to be a smoker? Okay. You knew it was bad, right? you did it anyway. Why? You knew it was bad.
Tasted good.
Yep, absolutely. You knew it was bad. In your conscious mind, you knew this is terrible for me. This is bad news bears. Subconsciously, though, it gave you a positive result. Whether it was the coolness factor or the reduction of stress, whatever it is. So you could tell your tiny percent of your brain all day long, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. However, as long as it stays a positive in here, you're always going to smoke. Until that changes, you're addicted. That's why when you hear drug addicts talk about, you know, I had to hit rock bottom. Well, rock bottom is really flipping this switch. It takes about 1/1,000,000th of a volt. But it's literally flipping the switch, just like polarity in a battery. Once these match up, yep, I know it's negative. Yep, I know it's negative. They're like, oh, it was easy. I quit cold turkey. I don't know what happened this time. It was my 5th trip to rehab. All of a sudden, poof, I was free. Right? That's because of this. Now, when that comes to your business, we have to figure out a way to communicate in such a way that this works for you. Once you understand that, you no longer need the 12-part system to sales. You no longer need the acronyms that all these people come up with. A lot of what is out there is absolute hogwash. Let's transfer this to, well, actually, let me give you some real-world examples. I did some work for a company, a very, very large cell phone communication company. And they spent, I think at the time, $10 to $12 million bringing in the experts to come up with an acronym to get their salespeople to sell, right? And I came in and I said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you wasted your money. You know, they had this course, like first you approach them. You ask them what features, advantages, and benefits are they looking for. Like it was this really cheesy thing that even when you watch the video, you're like, oh, I don't have to do this? I don't even want to do it. So we went in there, and day one, this couple comes in the door, and they walk in the door, and I yell at them. I'm like, hey, you know how to use a phone? Yeah. They look at each other. Yeah. Now, what did that do? This is another little freebie I'm going to throw in here. When two people look at each other and do a similar thing, see, she did it. I didn't tell you to, but you did it anyway, didn't you? Sorry. What they're doing is they're establishing a new belief. A belief is an accepted truth. It doesn't even have to be true. It's an accepted truth. Make sense? Your mind can create something into reality because it believes it. This is a very, very powerful tool. I should mention, by the way, I can hypnotize you too, so that's kind of where this comes from. This is a very powerful tool. When you're little and you see the moon shine through the window and the coats on the coat rack, your heart actually starts pounding. You're having a real response. This isn't fake. It's real. Your adrenaline starts. You start to sweat. Why? It's not real, but you're having a real reaction. Because you believed it to be real. It didn't matter if it was or not. Make sense? So when this couple comes in, and I say, hey, you know how to use a phone? What did I do? I challenged an established belief. Of course they did. Every place else that they went to told them, hey, welcome to AT&T, welcome to whatever. I said, hey, you know how to use a phone? They looked at each other and like, huh. This is establishing a new belief. I challenged a belief. When they arrived in a van that was about 10 years old, and it had a handicap plate on it. Okay? So they would come in, and I did the thing to establish a new belief structure. And then when they were looking at phones, I would say, hey, you know what? I don't know what you're looking for, but that one in your hand right now, that's really good for people who need to rely on a single. Why did I do that? It wasn't in the acronym, the $10 million acronym, because I knew the plate, they had a handicapped person in their family. Both of them were walking fine. So I knew that they had a belief, a truth in their life, that they needed to maintain contact with somebody in their family. Totally went outside the script that they spent $10 million making. Okay? Then, when they actually said, oh, yeah, this is it, again, nodding heads to each other, I said, now, I don't know what plan you're looking for, but me personally, I'm on a really tight budget. So I go with this. Why did I say that?
10-year-old car.
10-year-old car. See, you just learned in under 7 minutes what all these books miss in decades. You mind if I take this off?
No, go ahead.
It's hot in here.
But stop there, Josh.
Okay, so the next area we have to look at is leadership. There are a bazillion books on leadership. Tony Dungy has written some, these actors have written some. How many of you have employees? This isn't a trick question. How many of you have employees? Okay. Did you know that your employee doesn't want to be there? And if you don't believe me, stop paying them. Stop paying them, and I'll bet you dollars to donuts they stop showing up. So we have this system in America of false leadership. Now everybody in here, whether you have employees or not, you're a leader. Okay, so this still applies to you. We're just going to use employees as an example because it's magnifiable. We have this approach in America that everybody wants to be led. That's where all of our leadership books take root. And it's one thing to, as a former NFL coach, to write a book about leading $20 million a year athletes. They want to be there. So this whole approach to, well, this is what the 21 irrefutable guy said, and this is what Tony Dungy said, and this is what, fill in the blank said. They all approach leadership as if the people who you're leading want to be led. Fact of the matter is, most of them don't. Whether it's an employee, a spouse, a child, a banker, you are always leading. Somebody told me early in my business career that in every single engagement, you are either going to be the person of influence or you're going to be influenced. And there's times to be either. I mean, if you're a kid, your parents should influence you. If you're the parent, you should influence them. But we need to take that approach to leadership, especially when we realize that they don't want to be led. So let me just give you a free example. Let's say I owned a widget factory, and I have Sally Sundress, and Sally Sundress decides to come work for me. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I get productivity up? Because productivity is down. As a business owner, I need to get productivity up. I try raises, didn't work. She's still happier Friday afternoon than she is Monday morning. I tried ropes courses, didn't work. 2 weeks later, my production is still down. So what I decide to do is I decide to send Sally Sundress an email. And it says, hey, I want to have lunch with you on Friday. Now instantly, what does Sally do? She emails, exactly. She takes a deep breath, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble. Isn't it sad that we automatically go to I'm in trouble? It's true though. So you send an email to Sally Sundress and say, Sally, we need to have lunch. And you go to lunch with Sally and you say, Sally, my name's Josh. I'm sorry we didn't get to have a chance to do this prior, but I started this widget factory because 20 years ago I was working for Bob and I couldn't stand it anymore. I knew I had it in me to do something different, so I started this widget factory. Let's just be honest, before we move forward with your career here at Acme Widgets, I know you don't want to be here. And you know what? It's okay. That sentence right there has saved companies. Now we can carry this out a little further. Sally, what do you want to do? And since we obviously know, and I hope, Sally, honestly, I hope it's not to work for me forever. I think you're better than that. So what do you want to do? Well, me and my husband Joe, we always wanted to have a travel agency. Okay, great. So a week goes by. Monday morning, you leave a travel and leisure magazine on her desk with a little note that says, hey, I thought of you and Joe over the weekend. I hope you had a great weekend. That is going to be the most motivated employee you've ever had in your life. However, this isn't taught in any SHRM human resource course. I know because I've been there and they suck. But that whole idea of accepting the fact that she doesn't want to be there and using that towards your leadership. We've had some great leaders call the show, either as guests or as call-in. And it always comes down to, well, why are you leading them? I mean, think about this. If they don't want to be there, and you don't, we keep doing this little dance. You pretend you really like them, and they pretend they really want to be there. And then, something happens, and all of a sudden it breaks in such a way that it's irreconcilable. Now, all because we tiptoed around the issue. Well, that's another mistake businesses make. Another one is, why are you doing this? Some of you have forgotten. Some of you have been trying for so long. that you forgot why you're still here. I run into that one a lot. So you have to spend some time and get back to, why am I doing this? Is it just to get an invention out? If it is, then maybe you don't have to worry about how to make it a business. Give it to somebody. I mean, if it was just to get it out of your head and into the world, run with it. Just give it to somebody. But if it's not, then you have to ask yourself the larger question, what's the goal? And if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a plan, then you're going to keep hitting walls. It's going to seem like you're never getting anywhere, but that's like if we all got in the car and said, hey, let's go. Terry, you're driving. We would never leave the parking lot unless we knew where we were heading.
Oh, yeah, we would.
Walls. Yeah, exactly. So I try not to spend a lot of time on it, because that's where most speakers have to spend all of their time, because they have nothing else. So you'll go to a seminar and it's 99% rah-rah, why are you here? Make sure you make the calls, make a numbered list, and all this other sort of stuff. And you know, honestly, what got me involved in this, I used to be so shy I couldn't order a hamburger from McDonald's. I now do this, so that's a trip, huh? But what got me involved was that couple. That couple who was crying, saying we were waiting for something. They knew that they wanted to go someplace. They just didn't know how to get there, why to get there. There are 27 million small business owners in this country, and maybe 100 entrepreneurs. Now I want you to think about that for a second, because we're taught that they're synonymous. Oh, small business owner is an entrepreneur. No. An entrepreneur thinks creatively. They think strategically. We have the mistake of being an employee for 10, 20, 40 years, taking that mentality, and now just owning the business. Nothing's changed. You just now signed the check. But the mindset is the same. So we have to think about how to start businesses and how to advance them strategically. This is probably one of the top 3 mistakes I see. One of them always falls under, well, it takes money to make money. How many of you have heard that? It's not true. If that was the case, nobody'd have any money. I mean, logic says, no, that's wrong. Let me give you an example. I was helping this gym in Seattle, and this guy came up to me and said, hey, I love how you're helping my boss. Can you help me? I want to leave. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he wanted to own like a hotel or something. I said, look, that ain't going to happen. That, you need money. But how do we think strategically? How do we get you there anyway? I said, what are you good at? I said, well, I'm good at drawing. I said, well, draw something for me. And he did like those, you know, you go to a tourist place and they do the caricature. Thank you. He was doing caricatures. And I said, well, this is super simple. We could have you out of your job in under a week. We could have you self-employed by Tuesday. So we went into the city, got him like a vendor permit for the city, 15, 20 bucks, depending on the city. And I said, now, you don't have any money, I get that. So you go to pizzerias, and you say, hey, I'm going to draw caricatures of tourists. They don't know where to eat. What if you funded me with the $700 I need to get started, and I'll give away a coupon to your pizzeria, they don't know where to eat. And that funded his business. Took no money to make money. And that's just one example. But we don't think strategically anymore. I was helping a gym owner. She was in a tiny town, I think 3,000, 4,000 people up on a butte out west. And she bought into a very well-known franchise. The franchise didn't care if she succeeded or not. She had a 10-year agreement, $800 a month for 10 years. Didn't care. Just, you could go bankrupt, you still owe them $800 a month for 10 years. So they didn't care. And she was drowning, absolutely underwater. And she said, you know what, I need help. Can you help me? And I said, well, we know there's a lack of strategic thought here because studies have shown only 10 to 12% of a population joins a gym. Oh, I didn't know that. Lack of strategic thought here. You should know your industry before you go into it. And I said, so right off the bat, you have another gym in town. If we take that divided, you have a 1,000 square foot gym, $8 a square foot, you're paying $8,000 in rent. You don't have a population base to cover your expenses. So I said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's mathematically impossible for you using their franchise model to become successful here. And she cried, like crying, literally. And she's like, well, then why were they willing to sell me the franchise? Duh. Duh. But so many of us are in that same mental place. How do I get this product to market? I mean, there's so many strategic venues and avenues that we just don't think about. We go into an industry and think, well, I'm a good plumber, so I'm gonna plumb good. So what? So what? You can have the cure for cancer. And unless somebody's telling somebody else, it's never gonna get anywhere. So you have to have those strategic thoughts. So those are usually the biggest areas where businesses fail.